You step into the dusty, sun-baked world of ancient Egypt. It's a world where the air smells of salt water from a Nile, and the heat clings to your skin like an old friend you never asked for. You're not a royal. You're not a priest. You're not a high-ranking official. You're just a worker, one of many whose job is to carve, haul, and build in the shadow of the great pyramids and tombs. The pharaoh's tomb is being constructed, and the stones, heavy and unforgiving, have become your life. It's a world where each stone weighs more than your entire body, yet you carry it like it's nothing. You don't question the orders. You don't ask why you were chosen to serve in this labor. The tomb is sacred. The tomb is everything. But what exactly is the life of a tomb builder? The grand tombs and pyramids are symbols of grandeur, the final resting places of Egypt's elite. But behind their towering stones lies a more modest, and often invisible, story, that of the tomb builders. These workers, who often went unacknowledged in the ancient texts, were the very hands that shaped Egypt's legacy. They didn't have the luxury of monumental fame or wealth, but their work stands the test of time. This story isn't about the tombs that kings like Ramses and Tutankhamun rest in. It's about the hands that built their final homes. You wake early, before the sun stretches too high in the sky. You're part of a team that's tasked with carving out intricate scenes into the stone walls of the tomb. Your chisel strikes the stone with a rhythmic sound, a rhythm that blends with the hum of your fellow workers. The foreman walks the site, his sandals kicking up dust as he calls out orders. He's watching every move you make. You can't afford to make a mistake. Mistakes are costly, and in this world, cost can mean more than just a reprimand. It can mean a day without food, a day without rest, or worse, the loss of your place among the workers. The tombs are not built in a day. They are monuments to eternity, and building them is not just about skill. It's about endurance. You feel your muscles ache with every stone you carry, and yet, you push forward. You push forward not just for the wages you'll receive at the end of the day, but for something deeper. Something that doesn't quite make sense, even to you. Something about immortality, about ensuring the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife is uninterrupted. Historians still argue whether these workers were truly slaves, as many assume, or if they were paid laborers working for the promise of a stable life in the afterlife. Recent archaeological discoveries have shed light on the lives of these workers, revealing that they were far from faceless slaves. In fact, some were highly skilled artisans, experts in stonework, metallurgy, and even painting. The tomb builders, it seems, had their own culture, their own hierarchy. One of the more curious things you've learned in recent years is that these workers were housed in small villages near the tombs. These weren't the cramped, poor living conditions you might expect. They had food, shelter, and some semblance of community. You've heard whispers that some of the workers had families, children, and that these families were also part of the tomb building process. Their work wasn't just about cutting stone. It was about creating a space for eternity, where the pharaoh would rest in peace. The grand tombs of Egypt are known for their vastness and intricate design, but what's often forgotten is that they were also the product of an entire society working together in a shared purpose. As you look around, you see the other builders. Some of them are much older than you, with faces weathered by years of labor. Their hands move deftly, and their knowledge of the stonework seems almost instinctual. Others are younger, like you, still learning the trade, still figuring out how to make every stroke count. It's the older workers who tell the best stories. They speak of past pharaohs, of tombs that took decades to complete, of tombs where workers died in accidents or were buried with the pharaoh for their service. You listen carefully, not just because you want to hear the stories, but because you understand the gravity of what you're doing. You're building something that will last for centuries. You're carving a piece of history into the very walls that surround you. And yet, there's a strange tension in the air. The pharaoh is a god, but you're not the one he's concerned about. The tomb is for him alone. The pharaoh's tombs are meant to house his body, but they also house his legacy, his wealth, his possessions, and his divine connection to the gods. You, the builder, are part of that legacy, but you'll never be mentioned in the grand inscriptions or depicted in the grand scenes of victory. Your name will never be remembered. It's a sobering thought. Still, it's a life you've chosen, or perhaps one that's been chosen for you. The tombs you build will stand for eternity, even as you fade into the dust of history. You begin to carve once again. The intricate designs flow beneath your hands, the stone shaping easily under the pressure of your chisel. There's a rhythm to it, a gentle back-and-forth motion that's soothing, even if the work itself is grueling. With every stroke, you feel the weight of the pharaoh's legacy resting on your shoulders. There's something oddly peaceful about it, as though your actions, no matter how small, are contributing to something greater than yourself. You're not just building a tomb, you're participating in the creation of eternity. And so, you continue to work. The sun beats down on your back, but you don't notice it anymore. The only thing that matters is the stone, the chisel, the rhythm. It's a strange kind of peace, the kind that comes from knowing that no matter how small your life may seem, it has meaning. The tomb you're building is a testament to the pharaoh's eternal journey. And in a way, it's a testament to yours as well. Thank you for your patience. Let's continue with Section 2, expanding further into the life of an ancient Egyptian tomb builder. You're still working, your hands becoming more accustomed to the rhythmic swing of the chisel. The sun rises higher, the heat intensifying, but there's a strange sense of calm that settles within you. Perhaps it's the monotony of the work, or maybe it's the steady progression of the tomb itself. Each layer of stone adding to the pharaoh's eternal resting place. Each stroke of your chisel bringing you closer to something that transcends time. This tomb, this small corner of the grand scheme of Egypt's history, will be here long after you're gone. In the early morning hours, when the light is still soft and the air cool, there's a quiet hum of activity that fills the tomb construction site. The workers are here, each of them focused on their task. Some are carving walls, others are hauling stones from the quarry, and still, others are mixing mortar. The work is hard, demanding, but there's an unspoken camaraderie between the workers. The men who stand next to you have seen countless tombs constructed, and they know what it takes to bring something so grand into being. This particular tomb is for a noble, a man of great wealth and influence, though not a pharaoh. He is just one of the many who seek immortality in the afterlife. His tomb, while not as grand as the ones built for pharaohs, is still a monumental undertaking. The idea of immortality, of preserving the body and soul for eternity, is what drives you and your fellow workers to toil in this harsh environment. You're not just building a tomb, you're constructing a gateway to the afterlife, a place where the noble can be reborn, where he can take his riches and his power into the next life. The process of building the tomb is as much about ritual as it is about labor. Every stone, every inscription, every carving must be perfect. The workers in charge of the walls are skilled artisans, their hands steady as they carve out images of the noble's life, his victories, his wealth. Scenes of hunting, feasting, and offerings to the gods fill the space around you. It's a beautiful sight, even in its unfinished state. The walls seem to come alive under the touch of skilled hands, each stroke telling a story of a life well lived, or a life that's about to be remembered. As you work, you think about the ancient rituals involved in these tombs. Historians still argue whether the laborers who built these tombs followed strict religious rites, or if they were simply driven by the promise of material compensation. Some argue that the tomb builders, like the priests who oversaw the burial rites, were performing their work as part of a religious duty, ensuring that the noble's journey into the afterlife would be smooth and free from danger. Others believe that these workers, like any other laborers, were simply doing their jobs for the sake of survival. One thing is certain, though, the work is grueling, but it has its rewards. There's a sense of pride in what you do. You're part of something much larger than yourself, part of a centuries-old tradition of tomb building that has endured for millennia. The work is not easy, but it's meaningful. On the day of the tomb's completion, there is a sense of quiet satisfaction among the workers. The walls are lined with carvings, the stone is set in place, and the final touches are made. The tomb is ready. The noble's journey into the afterlife is secure. For a moment, you stand there, admiring the work. It's hard to believe that something so monumental could be the product of so many hands. And yet it is. Each stroke, each carving, each stone has been a part of this grand effort. But as the final touches are added, there's a change in the air. The work is finished, and it's time for the workers to leave. The tomb has been sealed, and the noble's body is laid to rest. You've heard the stories, of course, about the workers who were sometimes sealed inside the tomb with the dead to serve as eternal servants. But there's no fear in your heart. You've done your job, and you've done it well. As the day fades into night, you head back to the village where you live with the other workers. It's a small settlement, but it's home. The work you've done is recognized here. There's a camaraderie among the workers, an understanding that, while you may not be rich or famous, you're part of something important. The tombs you build will stand the test of time. They'll be here long after you're gone, a testament to the laborers who crafted them. The village itself is humble, with small houses made of mud and brick. The air is thick with the scent of cooking food, and children play in the dusty streets. Your family is waiting for you, and you can already hear the sounds of your children's laughter from a distance. The day's work is over, but tomorrow, the cycle will begin again. The work never truly ends. The tombs will always need building, the stones will always need carving, and the pharaohs and nobles will always need their final resting places. Historians still debate whether these workers were given any form of rest or relaxation after long days of labor, or if they worked tirelessly day after day, with no reprieve. It's likely that the workers, like most laborers of the time, had little choice but to continue working until their bodies could no longer carry the weight of the stones. But despite the hardships, there's a sense of fulfillment in knowing that you've contributed to something that will last forever. You walk into your small home, the warmth of your family surrounding you. Your children run to greet you, their smiles wide, and for a moment, the harsh realities of your work fade into the background. The tomb is finished. The work is done for now. But tomorrow, the cycle begins again. The night passes quickly, the sounds of the village fading into the background as you sleep soundly, knowing tomorrow will bring another day of grueling labor. The rhythmic hum of the early morning wind greets you, the sun barely visible on the horizon. The heat will be overwhelming by midday, but for now, it's still bearable. The workers are gathering, their faces a blend of determination and exhaustion. There's little time for idle chatter. Each of you knows your role, and you move toward the construction site with purpose. Today, the focus is on transporting the massive stones from the quarry to the tomb site. The stones are heavy, far heavier than you could lift alone, and they need to be transported over long distances. The ancient Egyptians were known for their ingenious engineering feats, and transporting these stones was no exception. Ramps are constructed, pulleys are rigged, and teams of workers, often in pairs, are assigned to each stone. You're part of one such team today, and as you grab hold of the ropes, you can feel the weight of the task ahead. It's remarkable to think that these stones, which are cut from the quarries of nearby hills, will become part of something that will outlast you, that will endure for thousands of years. The sheer size of the stones is awe-inspiring. They're not the size of mere bricks. These are massive blocks, often weighing several tons. The workers who cut the stone, the masons, are true craftsmen. They use copper tools, which are surprisingly effective for carving through stone, though it's a process that takes time. The finer details, intricate carvings and hieroglyphs, are the work of specialized artisans, whose skills are passed down from generation to generation. Historians still debate whether these stones were quarried in a single location or if they were sourced from multiple regions. Some suggest that the limestone used for the exterior of the tombs came from quarries in Tura, while others argue that granite, for the burial chamber itself, was brought in from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. Regardless of the source, it's clear that these stones are a testament to the skill of ancient Egyptian workers. As you labor, the sun climbs higher, and the work becomes more strenuous. Sweat pours down your face as you struggle with the heavy stone. You're not alone in this effort. Every man around you is pulling his weight, gritting his teeth, and pushing forward. The air is thick with the smell of dust, sweat, and the faint scent of herbs from the village. The work is grueling, but it's necessary. The tomb must be completed. The pharaoh's legacy is at stake. The procession of workers, pulling the stone blocks on wooden sleds, is a sight to behold. It's a slow, methodical process, but it's efficient. Ropes are tied to the sleds, and teams of men pull with all their might. Some of the sleds are mounted on rollers, while others glide over the sand with surprising ease. As you approach the tomb site, You can see the finished sections rising from the ground, the stone blocks stacking higher and higher, each layer adding to the towering monument. The tomb is beginning to take shape, and with it, the feeling that something monumental is happening. But as you get closer to the tomb, there's a noticeable change in the atmosphere. It's not just the heat or the weight of the work. It's the sudden sense of reverence that settles over you. You're not just building a tomb for a man. You're building a sanctuary for his soul. It's a humbling thought, one that makes the weight of the stones feel lighter, if only for a moment. Today, there's an additional task. Some of the workers are starting to carve out the burial chamber itself, where the body of the noble will rest for eternity. The chamber is deep underground, and it requires careful planning to ensure that it remains stable and secure. It's a delicate operation, one that requires precision. There are few mistakes allowed when working with such a grand structure, and each task must be completed with careful attention to detail. The workers descend into the pit, their heads wrapped in linen to protect them from the dust, as they begin their work. Historians still debate the process of carving burial chambers. Some suggest that ramps were used to lower the stones into place, while others believe that the stones were simply cut and lowered using ropes. One thing is certain. It was a task that required immense skill, and the workers who performed it were highly respected for their expertise. As you look around at the growing structure, there's a sense of awe that fills you. The tomb, this giant, silent monument to a noble's legacy, is being created by your hands. It's a humbling realization, and it fills you with pride. But there's also a deep sense of fatigue. The work is relentless, and though you find satisfaction in what you're building, you can't help but long for the moment when the tomb is complete and you can rest. Until then, the stones must be moved, the walls must be carved, and the tomb must rise. You can't help but wonder about the people who will visit this tomb in the future. Will they understand the work that went into it? Will they appreciate the effort, the sweat, and the sacrifices that were made to build it? It's a strange thought, but one that lingers as the day wears on. At the end of the day, you return home again, weary but proud of the progress made. Your family greets you with open arms, their faces full of warmth and love. You rest your tired body, knowing that tomorrow will bring another day of hard work. But for now, you allow yourself a moment of peace. The tomb is one step closer to completion, and with each passing day, it becomes more than just a tomb. It becomes a testament to the work of those who built it. The next morning comes quickly, the sun rising over the ancient desert, casting its warm glow across the workers as they gather at the site. You awake with a familiar heaviness in your limbs, the weariness of your body matching the weight of the work ahead. Yet, today feels different. There's a quiet anticipation in the air, a whisper of excitement. Today, the work shifts. While the stone blocks will continue to be moved, it's time for the finer touches to begin. The artistry, the symbols and markings that will make this tomb more than just a grave, is about to take shape. As you arrive at the site, you see a team of skilled artisans waiting. These men are not the laborers who haul the stones or work the ramps. They're specialists, trained in the craft of carving hieroglyphs. These delicate, intricate symbols will adorn the walls, floors, and even the ceilings of the tomb. They are meant to guide the soul of the deceased on their journey into the afterlife, ensuring that they are protected and provided for in the next world. The depictions of gods, pharaohs, and the everyday life of ancient Egypt will help the soul find its way in the land of the dead. The process of carving these symbols is meticulous. The artisans use sharp tools made of copper or bronze, working slowly and carefully to ensure that each symbol is precise and meaningful. The hieroglyphs are more than just decoration. They are a language, a form of communication that transcends time. Each stroke of the chisel has a purpose, each line a symbol of the ancient belief system that governed Egyptian life. As you watch the artisans at work, you can't help but wonder how these symbols will endure through the ages. The pharaohs and nobles who commissioned these tombs believed that the afterlife would last for eternity. The tombs were designed to ensure that the deceased would be honored and cared for in the next world, just as they were in life. But you also know that not all tombs will remain intact. Some will be looted, others forgotten, buried by the sands of time. Will this tomb, too, eventually be lost to history? Will the hieroglyphs fade, their meanings obscured by centuries of neglect? Historians still debate the origins of hieroglyphs. Some believe that the writing system was developed around 3200 BCE, while others suggest it may have come later. What is certain, however, is that the hieroglyphs were not just a method of writing. They were a form of art, one that captured the essence of Egyptian culture. The combination of symbols, colors, and artistry made these tombs not just places of burial, but sacred spaces designed to honor the gods and ensure the eternal safety of the deceased. As you continue to watch, you notice how the artisans use color to enhance the images. Bright reds, golds, and blues are applied to the carvings, making the hieroglyphs come alive. The rich, vibrant hues contrast with the gray stone, creating a sense of reverence and beauty. It's hard to imagine how much work goes into each section of the tomb. The artists work long hours, carefully etching and painting, ensuring that every detail is perfect. Each image, whether it's of a god or a nobleman, carries deep meaning. The figures are often shown in stiff, formal poses, as if frozen in time, forever watching over the tomb and its contents. The next morning comes quickly, the sun rising over the ancient desert, casting its warm glow across the workers as they gather at the site. You awake with a familiar heaviness in your limbs, the weariness of your body matching the weight of the work ahead. Yet, today feels different. There's a quiet anticipation in the air, a whisper of excitement. Today, the work shifts. While the stone blocks will continue to be moved, it's time for the finer touches to begin. The artistry, the symbols and markings that will make this tomb more than just a grave, is about to take shape. As you arrive at the site, you see a team of skilled artisans waiting. These men are not the laborers who haul the stones or work the ramps. They're specialists, trained in the craft of carving hieroglyphs. These delicate, intricate symbols will adorn the walls, floors, and even the ceilings of the tomb. They are meant to guide the soul of the deceased on their journey into the afterlife, ensuring that they are protected and provided for in the next world. The depictions of gods, pharaohs, and the everyday life of ancient Egypt will help the soul find its way in the land of the dead. The process of carving these symbols is meticulous. The artisans use sharp tools made of copper or bronze, working slowly and carefully to ensure that each symbol is precise and meaningful. The hieroglyphs are more than just decoration. They are a language, a form of communication that transcends time. Each stroke of the chisel has a purpose, each line a symbol of the ancient belief system that governed Egyptian life. As you watch the artisans at work, you can't help but wonder how these symbols will endure through the ages. The pharaohs and nobles who commissioned these tombs believed that the afterlife would last for eternity. The tombs were designed to ensure that the deceased would be honored and cared for in the next world, just as they were in life. But you also know that not all tombs will remain intact. Some will be looted, others forgotten, buried by the sands of time. Will this tomb, too, eventually be lost to history? Will the hieroglyphs fade, their meanings obscured by centuries of neglect? Historians still debate the origins of hieroglyphs. Some believe that the writing system was developed around 3200 BCE, while others suggest it may have come later. What is certain, however, is that the hieroglyphs were not just a method of writing. They were a form of art, one that captured the essence of Egyptian culture. The combination of symbols, colors, and artistry made these tombs not just places of burial, but sacred spaces designed to honor the gods and ensure the eternal safety of the deceased. As you continue to watch, you notice how the artisans use color to enhance the images. Bright reds, golds, and blues are applied to the carvings, making the hieroglyphs come alive. The rich, vibrant hues contrast with the gray stone, creating a sense of reverence and beauty. It's hard to imagine how much work goes into each section of the tomb. The artists work long hours, carefully etching and painting, ensuring that every detail is perfect. Each image, whether it's of a god or a nobleman, carries deep meaning. The figures are often shown in stiff, formal poses, as if frozen in time, forever watching over the tomb and its contents. The beauty of the tombs is not just in their grand architecture or the size of the stones. It's in these details, the smaller, often overlooked elements, that reveal the true artistry of ancient Egypt. The tombs were meant to tell the story of the deceased, to preserve their memory for eternity. The workers, from the masons to the artisans, were not just laborers. They were artists, creating something that would stand the test of time. In a sense, they were creating history. As the day stretches on, the sun beats down mercilessly, the heat of the desert creeping into every crevice of the tomb. The workers, sweating from the effort, pause for a moment to drink from their clay vessels, replenishing their energy before returning to their tasks. You join them, your mouth dry, your body aching. There is no rest yet. The work must continue. But as you sit under the shade of a palm tree, you can't help but feel a sense of pride. You're part of something bigger than yourself, something that will echo through history long after your bones have turned to dust. Historians still argue whether the tombs were ever truly meant to be visited by the living, or if they were purely for the dead. Some suggest that they were designed as places of veneration, meant to be visited by the deceased family and priests, who would offer prayers and sacrifices to the gods. Others believe that the tombs were sacred spaces meant to be sealed off and hidden, away from the prying eyes of the living. Perhaps it doesn't matter. What's important is that the tomb you're helping to build is a reflection of the ancient Egyptian belief in the afterlife, a place where the dead could live on forever, surrounded by beauty and protection. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the site, you feel the weight of the day's work pressing down on you. Your muscles ache, your hands are calloused, but there's a sense of satisfaction in knowing that the tomb is coming together. The walls are being carved, the hieroglyphs are taking shape, and the burial chamber is starting to take form. Tomorrow will bring more of the same. But for now, you take a moment to rest. The workers begin to pack up, their work for the day complete. You gather your tools, your body weary, but your mind full of thoughts of the tomb and the legacy it will leave behind. As you walk back to your home, the evening air cools the heat of the day. You hear the sounds of children playing in the distance, the low hum of the village settling into quiet. The world around you feels peaceful, but you know that the work must continue. Tomorrow will come, and the tomb will rise higher, one stone at a time. The night is long and the moon rises slowly over the desert. Its silvery light casts a faint glow across the workers' quarters, where you lie awake, thinking about tomorrow. The thought of the tomb weighs heavily on you, not just because of the physical labor, but because of what it represents. You've heard stories from the older workers, tales of the great pharaohs and the immense wealth that was buried with them. But now, it's not the riches that captivate your mind. It's the purpose behind this tomb. You can't help but wonder if the deceased, buried beneath the stones and carvings, will ever truly be remembered. Will the tomb ever be seen by anyone other than the workers who built it? Will anyone ever understand the quiet devotion that's being poured into its creation? As you drift into a light sleep, the sound of desert winds outside your small shelter is like a lullaby, soothing you into a deeper rest. You dream of endless corridors, golden statues, and the pharaoh's face, solemn and proud, gazing down upon you from the stone walls. But your dreams are also filled with worry. Will this tomb withstand the test of time? Will the pyramid that rises next to it one day outshine it, leaving this tomb forgotten, a mere whisper in the wind? The first light of dawn brings another day of work. The workers are already stirring when you step outside, rubbing the sleep from your eyes and stretching the stiffness from your back. You glance toward the tomb site and see that the work has progressed overnight. The stonemasons have finished laying more of the massive blocks, and the pyramid shape is slowly beginning to take form. It's still far from completion, but it's taking shape. As the sun begins to rise, its rays seem to illuminate the tomb, casting long shadows over the growing structure, making it seem even more majestic. Today, the work is focused on the next phase of construction, the intricate brick and stone ramp leading up to the burial chamber. This is no ordinary ramp. It is designed to withstand the weight of the enormous stones being hauled up from the valley below. The ramp will be built in a series of levels, each one slightly higher than the last, until it reaches the top of the pyramid. The process is slow, deliberate, and dangerous. The ramps are often built with a slight curve, allowing the workers to roll the stones up without having to drag them across the ground. But even with this ingenious system, accidents happen. Workers slip, stones tumble, and injuries are common. You've seen the injuries before, scrapes, bruises, even broken bones, but it's rare for anyone to talk about the risks. No one is willing to admit fear. The tomb must be built, and it must be done in a certain time frame. Time is the enemy, and each stone placed is another moment closer to completing the tomb. No one dares speak the truth. Many of the workers will never see the tomb finished. They will fall, injured or exhausted, and their work will end long before the tomb reaches its final height. Historians still debate the working conditions of the tomb builders. Some say that they were conscripted, forced into labor by the pharaohs to complete these monumental structures. Others argue that the workers were actually skilled craftsmen, hired by the state for their expertise in stone cutting and construction. What is certain is that the work was grueling, demanding, and dangerous. And yet, there's an undeniable pride in it all. The tombs were the legacy of Egypt, a symbol of its power, its wealth, and its culture. The workers may not have been celebrated in their lifetimes, but their contributions ensured the lasting grandeur of the pharaohs and their kingdoms. As you and the other laborers begin to move the stones up the ramp, you can feel the weight of the day pressing down on you. The heat is already intense, the sun beating relentlessly upon the workers. Sweat drips down your face as you struggle to maintain a steady rhythm, your muscles straining under the effort. Every step is a small victory. Every stone moved a testament to your endurance. But there's a nagging feeling in the back of your mind. You can't help but wonder, who will remember you when this tomb is finished? Will your name be etched into the walls, like the names of the artisans who carve the hieroglyphs? Or will you, like so many others, remain anonymous, just another nameless laborer who toiled in the shadow of the great pharaohs? As you pause for a break, you watch the workers around you. Some are laughing, others are grim-faced, their expressions showing the strain of the work. You catch the eye of one of the older men, a man who has worked on several tombs. He smiles at you, as if he can read your thoughts, and nods toward the pyramid. "We all leave our mark," he says quietly. "It may not be written on the walls, but it's in every stone we move." His words give you some comfort, but the thought of your own legacy still lingers. Maybe, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter if anyone remembers your name. Maybe it's enough to know that, for a short time, you were part of something greater than yourself. You were part of the eternal cycle, the great project that is Egypt. As the day stretches on, the work continues. The stones are moved, the ramps are built, and the tomb rises higher with every passing hour. But despite the heat, the fatigue, and the risks, there's a sense of calm in the air. The work is steady. The tomb is taking shape. And in the back of your mind, you feel the quiet certainty that, despite everything, you are part of history. As night falls again over the desert, and the workers retreat to their mud brick quarters, the air cools, and you find a spot to sit near the edge of the settlement, staring out at the looming silhouette of the unfinished tomb. Your back aches, your hands are blistered, and your legs tremble from hauling stone all day, but your mind is still buzzing. The desert sky above you glitters with stars, unpolluted and timeless, just like the belief system that drives this monumental effort. You're not just building a tomb, you're helping craft an afterlife highway. To truly understand why you sweat and bleed for this work, you have to grasp how much the ancient Egyptians valued death. You see, in their world, death isn't the end. It's a doorway, a transformation, an elaborate journey through the underworld that only the well-prepared can survive. Which means the tomb isn't just a resting place. It's a carefully designed launch pad for the soul. From the moment a pharaoh dies, the clock starts ticking. His Ka, spirit, needs his body preserved, his belongings ready, and every symbol and spell in place so that he can navigate the Duat, the shadowy, obstacle-filled realm between life and eternity. This is where your work becomes sacred. Those walls you've been helping build, they're not just for structure. Soon they'll be covered in scenes from the Book of the Dead. Not actually a single book, by the way, but a collection of magical texts, prayers, and illustrations. Some versions are on papyrus scrolls. Others are painted directly onto the tomb walls. And they're detailed. Like, here's how to get past the giant serpent that wants to eat your heart, kind of detailed. The art team, the scribes and painters, will come next. They're the precision players. You've watched them work before, sitting cross-legged on flat pallets, mixing pigments from ground minerals. Red from ochre, blue from azurite, green from malachite. Some even use precious lapis lazuli, imported all the way from Afghanistan. That's the level of luxury going into a tomb that, let's be honest, no living person is supposed to see again. Talk about committing to a bit. But it's not just art. Each symbol has power. That jackal-headed Anubis figure, he's not there for decoration. He's guiding the soul through the underworld, helping it avoid traps, enemies, and divine judgment. The weighing of the heart scene, the most famous one, will likely be painted too. That's where the pharaoh's heart is weighed against the feather of Maat, goddess of truth. If it balances, eternal paradise. If not, well, say hello to Ammit, the devourer, a terrifying chimera who eats your soul and ends your journey permanently. No pressure. You overhear a few painters discussing the layout earlier in the day. They're debating which scenes to place near the sarcophagus chamber. One of them argues that placing the solar bark, Ra celestial boat, closest to the burial chamber reinforces the idea of rebirth with the sun each day. Another painter insists that the opening of the mouth ceremony should be illustrated prominently to symbolize the pharaoh's spirit being able to speak in the next world. Historians still argue about the precise sequence of these paintings. Were they standardized across dynasties? Or did each tomb follow its own creative vision based on the pharaoh's wishes? The painters eventually settle on a combination. You suspect the real reason is because one of them loves drawing crocodiles, and the duet is full of them. Ancient fantasy art meets divine survival guide. But here's a weird little secret you've picked up from your time near the scribes. Sometimes, they slip in tiny details not in the official texts. Not out of rebellion, but tradition. There's a fringe belief that a worker's personal symbol, or even a small likeness, hidden in the painted chaos of monsters and gods, will tether them spiritually to the tomb. Sort of a metaphysical, I was here. You think about doing it yourself. Maybe one day you'll sneak a mark behind a block, deep in the stone. Something only you will know is there. You're not a pharaoh, but maybe you deserve a little afterlife insurance too. As the moon arcs higher, your thoughts return to the big picture, the grandeur of it all. Why build so much for one man? Why carve whole rivers of stone underground, risking life and limb for someone you'll never meet? But the answer isn't just about one man. It's about order, harmony. The Egyptians call it Ma'at. It's the principle that keeps the stars in place and the Nile flowing. To disrupt that balance by denying a pharaoh his tomb would be to invite chaos into the world. Famine, war, disease. So even if the ruler is gone, the duty remains. His soul must transition cleanly, or the whole cosmic machine shudders. It's a heavy burden, but it also gives your toil meaning. Every rock you chip, every haul of sand, every callus and bruise, those are part of a cosmic bargain. By midnight, most of the camp is asleep. The snoring is soft, rhythmic. Someone nearby mumbles a prayer to Osiris, god of the dead. You lie back and gaze at the stars again. They're the same stars you saw last night. The same ones your father saw. The same ones ancient priests used to map the heavens and guide construction with uncanny precision. You fall asleep wondering what will happen when the final stone is laid, when the tomb is sealed and left to time. Will the soul within reach paradise? Will the tomb be safe from thieves? Or will it vanish beneath the sand, like so many others? No one knows. But for now, you just build. You wake to the low bellow of a conch shell, an unusual choice for a wake-up call. But in this world of stone, sand, and spirits, it fits. The air is cool, but the sun is already rising. You rub sleep from your eyes, stretch out the stiffness from another night on a reed mat, and get ready for another long day of construction. But this morning, your crew isn't heading to the tomb. No, today you're making a detour to the supply and storage area behind the village. Because behind every massive pyramid or tomb is an army of planners, bakers, brewers, and logistics workers keeping the entire operation alive. You might imagine that an ancient Egyptian laborer lived hand to mouth. But surprise, on government tomb projects like this, you're technically state-sponsored. You're not some half-starved peasant. You're more like a contract worker on a mega project. Payment isn't coins, it's rations, beer, bread, onions, dried fish, lentils. It's not glamorous, but it keeps you alive. And honestly, the beer's not bad. It's thick, rich and low in alcohol, more like liquid bread than a party drink. You line up with others in front of a storeroom made of baked mud brick. A scribe sits cross-legged near the doorway with a wooden tally board and a reed pen. He calls your name. You step forward and receive your share, measured carefully. Too little, and you can protest. Too much, and your mates might protest. Fairness is the glue that holds this place together. The bakeries are hot and always bustling. You pass one on the way out, women and men kneading dough, shaping loaves, and using dome-shaped clay ovens. One baker has a burn on his forearm that he jokes is the mark of RA. He grins and slaps another batch of dough into the fire-blacked oven mouth. And yes, rats and insects are always an issue. You swatted a fly that seems to be auditioning for a role in your ear canal. These open-air operations mean sand gets into everything. Your clothes, your food, your soul. At one point, you overhear a heated debate. A group of workers refusing to go back to the tomb. Not because they're lazy, but because their rations have been short for 3 days. One of them holds up a moldy onion, like it's Exhibit A in a courtroom. The scribe size, clearly used to this. He pulls out a small clay tablet and begins writing. Later, you learn this actually happened more than once. Organized labor strikes in the New Kingdom, including at Deir el-Medina, where tomb workers put down tools until they were fed properly. Historians still argue whether these strikes were spontaneous or part of a bigger tradition of labor negotiation. You chuckle at the idea of being part of ancient Union history. Bread and beer, or we disappear. Someone jokes, and a wave of laughter ripples through the line. Once you're fed, it's time for tool check. You head to the workshop where copper chisels, dolerite pounders, and wooden mallets are stored. Tool makers inspect every piece, occasionally melting down broken copper heads to reforge them. Iron isn't widespread yet. It's too expensive and reserved for the elite. You run your fingers along a freshly honed chisel. It's small but mighty, capable of shaping the very bedrock of eternity. Behind the tool area is the textile section. Spinners, weavers, and dyers creating the ropes, clothing, and linen wraps needed for work, ceremonies, and burial. One young woman, barely older than you, shows you a coil of rope made from papyrus fiber. It's surprisingly strong and will be used in a lowering system inside the tomb's deep shaft. She smiles shyly, then adds, "If it snaps, don't blame me." Even the animals have a role. You pass donkeys hauling supplies from the Nile. They wear bells made from seashells, clinking with every step. One donkey tries to bite your elbow. You consider biting it back. By midday, the heat turns merciless. The wind kicks up small clouds of sand that feel like 1,000 tiny needles on your skin. You retreat to a shaded canopy built from woven palm fronds. There, a few elders sit and tell stories while mending sandals and linen tunics. One old man tells you of a time when a foreman tried to sneak extra rations for his family. He was caught, stripped of his title, and assigned to dung collection duty for a month. Better to smell of sweat than shame, the elder laughs. You nod, wondering what kind of workplace drama has already played out behind these simple mud brick walls. Later, you help load baskets with natron, a naturally occurring salt harvested from dry lake beds. It's used for everything, from preservation to cleaning wounds to mummification. You've heard the embalmers joke that natron is worth its weight in gods. You believe them. By evening, you're back in camp, passing a small group of musicians playing flutes and clapping to a syncopated rhythm. Someone sings a hymn to Hathor, goddess of music and joy. You sit down near the fire, let the music wash over you, and share a few boiled lentils with a friend. The stars blink into view one by one. You realize that while the tomb may be for one man, this village supports hundreds. And it's not just about chisels and sweat. It's about structure, community, and just enough laughter to keep despair at bay. Tonight, someone tells a joke. How many workers does it take to build a tomb? Before anyone answers, he adds, all of them, and twice that if you want it done on time. Groans and laughter follow. You smile, stare into the fire, and imagine what future generations might say about you. Probably nothing. But maybe, just maybe, someone will uncover a painted wall or a well-placed stone and wonder, who built this? And you'll whisper from the past, I did. Me, and my donkey. The sun blisters overhead as you hoist the last stone fragment into a cart. It's not glamorous. This isn't one of the centerpiece blocks of a temple column or grand statue. It's debris, chiseled from the shaft of the tomb, now destined for some unceremonious pile just outside the village. Still, it's work. And work, in this world, is sacred. The tomb itself is transforming. You've moved far beyond the early clearing and digging stages. Now the passageways snake deeper underground, sloping and narrowing as they reach toward what will one day become the final chamber for a nobleman's eternal rest. Every step you take inside, the air cools and thickens. The stone walls begin to echo with distant murmurs, tools striking stone, low conversation, the occasional bout of swearing when someone misses and bruises a thumb. You've done it yourself. Twice. You find yourself crouching beside a master carver today. His name is Minna, and he's a wiry man with strong wrists and a calm voice. His eyes scan a stretch of newly smooth plaster with both reverence and dread. Blank walls, he whispers, like staring into the afterlife before the gods write your fate. You nod, though you don't fully understand. Then he dips a reed brush into red ochre and begins sketching. Suddenly, the blankness isn't blank anymore. In fluid strokes, he draws figures. Osiris, standing tall, a nobleman presenting offerings, a boat riding across the heavenly Nile. No mistakes, no hesitation. These are just guidelines, of course. The real carving and painting will come later. But already, it feels like magic. You glance at the floor beneath you. It's littered with broken brush tips, dried bits of pigment, and a smear of honey someone must have spilled from their lunch jar. A worker steps on it, curses, and skids a little before regaining balance. So much for solemnity. And the work is delicate. Surprisingly so. You always assumed tomb building was about brute strength, but now you see artistry at every level. The painters use brushes made from palm fibers. The sculptors follow precise proportions. And even the pigment itself has ritual weight. Malachite for green, hematite for red, lapis lazuli, if you're lucky, and today you are. A trader has delivered a small stash, shimmering like frozen sky. One quirky detail you learn. To make the blue pigment stick, they often mix it with animal fat, or, more disturbingly, crushed beetles. You don't ask how many bugs it takes for a full sky scene, but you do give your lunch a sideways glance. You wander into a side chamber, still under construction, and see something unusual, a shallow niche in the wall, just the size of a head. No one's entirely sure what it's for. A statue? A ritual object? Historians still argue whether these alcoves were meant for protective idols, or if they were simply decorative. Your guess? Maybe they needed a place to hide from the foreman. One thing is clear. Symmetry matters. The architect, a serious man with ink-stained fingers and no visible sense of humor, paces the hallways daily. He carries a string plumb bob and a wooden straight edge, checking lines, angles, and alignments like a hawk measuring the wind. He barks when things are off. Even a thumb-width mistake can bring days of extra work. Meanwhile, deeper in the tomb, another team installs the false doors, carved stone slabs meant to act as portals between the worlds of the living and the dead. You run your fingers over one, freshly polished and cool to the touch. The inscriptions are already in place. Prayers, names, and titles. The idea is simple. If the soul forgets who they were, the door reminds them. You imagine waking up in the afterlife, rubbing your ghost eyes, and thinking, yes, High Priest of Ta. That was me. By mid-afternoon, the air is filled with the scent of hot stone, sweat, and resin. You break for a short rest. Someone pulls out a reed flute and plays a soft tune. The acoustics are eerie. Every note echoes like it's bouncing off gods themselves. As you sip from a jar of tepid water, an older laborer tells you a secret. There's a chamber they haven't told us about, he says, voice low. A sealed one. Hidden. You raise an eyebrow. Hidden chambers? Really? But then again, the architects have been measuring odd angles lately. Could there be more to this tomb than meets the eye? Historians still debate whether hidden rooms were common or rare, especially in private tombs. Back in the passageway, someone drops a torch, and for a few seconds, the tunnel is plunged into darkness. A collective silence falls. Nobody moves. You feel the cool breath of the tomb on your neck and wonder, is something watching? When the light returns, everyone laughs a little too loudly, pretending they weren't just a bit terrified. As the sun begins its descent outside, you're finally released. You climb out of the shaft, blinking against the glare. Your tunic is stained, your arms ache, and your hands are covered in lime dust. But you feel proud. The walls below now tell a story that will outlive you. And as you walk back to the village, you wonder, will anyone ever know you were here? Probably not. But in the way the lines curve around Osiris's robe, in the way the colors refuse to fade, in the way the walls breathe with life, maybe they already do. The sun blisters overhead as you hoist the last stone fragment into a cart. It's not glamorous. This isn't one of the centerpiece blocks of a temple column or grand statue. It's debris, chiseled from the shaft of the tomb, now destined for some unceremonious pile just outside the village. Still, it's work. And work, in this world, is sacred. The tomb itself is transforming. You've moved far beyond the early clearing and digging stages. Now the passageways snake deeper underground, sloping and narrowing as they reach toward what will one day become the final chamber for a nobleman's eternal rest. Every step you take inside, the air cools and thickens. The stone walls begin to echo with distant murmurs, tools striking stone, low conversation, the occasional bout of swearing when someone misses and bruises a thumb. You've done it yourself. Twice. You find yourself crouching beside a master carver today. His name is Minna, and he's a wiry man with strong wrists and a calm voice. His eyes scan a stretch of newly smoothed plaster with both reverence and dread. Blank walls, he whispers, like staring into the afterlife before the gods write your fate. You nod, though you don't fully understand. Then he dips a reed brush into red ochre and begins sketching. Suddenly, the blankness isn't blank anymore. In fluid strokes, he draws figures. Osiris, standing tall, a nobleman presenting offerings, a boat riding across the heavenly Nile. No mistakes, no hesitation. These are just guidelines, of course. The real carving and painting will come later. But already, it feels like magic. You glance at the floor beneath you. It's littered with broken brush tips, dried bits of pigment, and a smear of honey someone must have spilled from their lunch jar. A worker steps on it, curses, and skids a little before regaining balance. So much for solemnity. And the work is delicate. Surprisingly so. You always assumed tomb building was about brute strength, but now you see artistry at every level. The painters use brushes made from palm fibers. The sculptors follow precise proportions. And even the pigment itself has ritual weight. Malachite for green, hematite for red, lapis lazuli, if you're lucky, and today you are. A trader has delivered a small stash, shimmering like frozen sky. One quirky detail you learn. To make the blue pigment stick, they often mix it with animal fat, or, more disturbingly, crushed beetles. You don't ask how many bugs it takes for a full sky scene, but you do give your lunch a sideways glance. You wander into a side chamber, still under construction, and see something unusual, a shallow niche in the wall, just the size of a head. No one's entirely sure what it's for. A statue? A ritual object? Historians still argue whether these alcoves were meant for protective idols, or if they were simply decorative. Your guess? Maybe they needed a place to hide from the foreman. One thing is clear. Symmetry matters. The architect, a serious man with ink-stained fingers and no visible sense of humor, paces the hallways daily. He carries a string plumb bob and a wooden straight edge, checking lines, angles, and alignments like a hawk measuring the wind. He barks when things are off. Even a thumb-width mistake can bring days of extra work. Meanwhile, deeper in the tomb, another team installs the false doors, carved stone slabs meant to act as portals between the worlds of the living and the dead. You run your fingers over one, freshly polished and cool to the touch. The inscriptions are already in place. Prayers, names, and titles. The idea is simple. If the soul forgets who they were, the door reminds them. You imagine waking up in the afterlife, rubbing your ghost eyes, and thinking, yes, High Priest of Ta. That was me. By mid-afternoon, the air is filled with the scent of hot stone, sweat, and resin. You break for a short rest. Someone pulls out a reed flute and plays a soft tune. The acoustics are eerie, Every note echoes like it's bouncing off gods themselves. As you sip from a jar of tepid water, an older laborer tells you a secret. There's a chamber they haven't told us about, he says, voice low. A sealed one. Hidden. You raise an eyebrow. Hidden chambers? Really? But then again, the architects have been measuring odd angles lately. Could there be more to this tomb than meets the eye? Historians still debate whether hidden rooms were common or rare, especially in private tombs. Back in the passageway, someone drops a torch, and for a few seconds, the tunnel is plunged into darkness. A collective silence falls. Nobody moves. You feel the cool breath of the tomb on your neck and wonder, is something watching? When the light returns, everyone laughs a little too loudly, pretending they weren't just a bit terrified. As the sun begins its descent outside, you're finally released. You climb out of the shaft, blinking against the glare. Your tunic is stained, your arms ache, and your hands are covered in lime dust. But you feel proud. The walls below now tell a story that will outlive you. And as you walk back to the village, you wonder, will anyone ever know you were here? Probably not. But in the way the lines curve around Osiris's robe, in the way the colors refuse to fade, in the way the walls breathe with life, maybe they already do. The morning begins with the scent of incense and the shuffling of linen-wrapped forms. You're stationed at the tomb entrance today, torch in hand, watching as the funeral procession winds slowly toward you through the valley. The priest chants in low tones. Family members wail, some out of grief, some out of obligation. It's hard to tell which. At the heart of the procession, the body resting in a beautifully painted coffin. You remember helping lacquer that would just a month ago. Now it glistens like obsidian in the sunlight, held aloft by 6 solemn carriers. You adjust your grip on the torch, the flames crackling in the early light, casting flickering shadows across the carved doorway. It's time for the ritual. This isn't just a burial. It's a theater production, a magical transformation. The opening of the mouth ceremony begins, meant to awaken the senses of the dead so they can breathe, speak, eat, and see in the afterlife. A priest dressed as Anubis, god of the dead, raises a ceremonial adze to the mouth of the corpse. You shift uncomfortably. It's a strange sight, part reverent, part unnerving. Still, the energy is heavy with expectation. Historians still argue whether the ceremony was meant to literally revive the soul or symbolically complete the funeral narrative. Either way, no one dares skip it. Nearby, another priest sprinkles natron, a naturally occurring salt, over the linen wrappings. It's a final purification. A whisper reaches your ear. That's from the Wadi natron. Ah, the same salty valley used for mummification. Quirky detail. They also used it for preserving fish. You resist the urge to laugh. Eternal glory or dinner marinade. Natron's got range. A sharp command breaks the moment. The procession moves forward. You follow, flame dancing ahead of you. The tomb is no longer yours. It belongs to the dead now. As they lower the coffin into its chamber, flower garlands are tossed in, lotus, papyrus, blue water lilies. The scent is thick, cloying. You can almost taste it. Then come the mourners. Each one approaches the body to say a final goodbye. Some whisper blessings. Others leave tiny offerings, a carved frog, a scarab, even a love letter. One woman clutches the edge of the coffin until she's pulled away. You turn your gaze toward the hallway. Too much emotion for one morning. Your task is to light each room before sealing. The idea is simple. Bathe the spaces in flame one last time, guiding the soul's first steps into the afterlife. You pass through chambers you helped paint, brush against jars you once lifted, nod to statues you molded from clay. Everything feels heavier now, permanent. In a far chamber, a scholar, one of the higher scribes, kneels over a large papyrus scroll. It's the Book of the Dead, or at least this tomb's version. Not a single book, but a collection of spells meant to protect the deceased on their journey. You watch as he traces lines with a reed pen, muttering. Spell 125, he whispers, and you feel your skin prickle. That's the one with the 42 declarations of innocence. I have not stolen. I have not killed. I have not lied. The deceased must recite these to pass the weighing of the heart. A feather on one side, their heart on the other. No pressure, Historians still argue how literally this judgment was taken. Was it spiritual metaphor? Or did people genuinely expect an afterlife court appearance? Judging by how many amulets and spells were buried, most weren't taking chances. You light the final torch and nod to the priest. The workers step back. A team of masons moves in with giant limestone slabs. The tomb is about to be sealed. Forever. You swallow hard. It's one thing to carve a wall. It's another to close it off for eternity. As the blocks grind into place, you hear the faint chant of protective spells, warding off evil spirits, tomb robbers, and the occasional cursed beetle. One quirky superstition: some workers used to sneak a good luck charm under the doorway before sealing it, just in case the gods were watching. You tuck a tiny bead into a crack. You're not superstitious, but still. The final echo of hammer on stone rings out. Silence. The door is sealed. You feel something shift inside you. You've helped birth a new world and bury one. The workers gather quietly at the cliffside to share flatbread and beer. No celebration, no song, just the sound of wind across the stone. The foreman offers a quiet toast. May he walk forever in the field of reeds. Everyone drinks. A few make the sign of protection. You don't say much. Later, back in the village, a child asks if the dead can hear us. Of course, her mother says. That's why we whisper when we pass the tombs. You find yourself whispering that night as you fall asleep, just in case. The tomb is sealed, but your work isn't done. Not even close. Back in the village, the tools must be cleaned, the brushes sorted, and, the latrines emptied. No one talks about the glamorous side of tomb building being glorified janitorial work. But hey, someone has to do it. And you pulled a short straw this week. You trudge toward the storage hut, a dusty little room packed with everything from chisels to leftover pigments. Some are wrapped in cloth, others scattered in trays like a child's forgotten art set. You sniff at a pot of blue paint, lapis lazuli, imported from Afghanistan, no less. Worth more than gold. And somehow, here you are, scraping it out with a fishbone. As you organize, a scribe strolls in, arms full of scrolls and hands full of opinions. He complains about inventory records being smudged. How am I supposed to know how much ochre we used last month? You raise an eyebrow. The wall's orange, isn't it? He sighs dramatically. Scholars. Still, the records matter. These scrolls, not just receipts and logs, but history in motion. They track every worker, every tool, every ration. And in the margins, little notes. Kantz is sick. Gave him pomegranate. Lost 2 chisels in flood. Debate over offering room. See foreman. Historians still argue over the full role of scribes. Some see them as glorified accountants. Others think they were the backbone of the entire operation. You'd lean toward the second. Without their records, the tombs might have fallen into chaos. Or worse, off budget. You carry a bundle of old rope outside to dry in the sun. A boy races by, chasing a dog that's half covered in charcoal dust. You pause. That's Seti's dog. Seti hasn't shown up to work all week. Something feels off. Later, you find out he was caught stealing food from the storage tent. He's been dismissed, exiled to the far village. One dumb decision, and he's erased from the records like he was never there. Tomb building may honor the dead, but it demands discipline from the living. You scratch your neck. A splinter from your pickaxe wound is scabbing over poorly. A healer suggests a paste of honey and garlic. Effective? Maybe. Smelly? Definitely. But you don't want an infection. You've seen what happens when wounds go untreated here. Limbs swell, fevers rise, and sometimes, well, they stop working altogether. The medics in the worker village are a mixed bag. Some trained in Memphis, others learned from their grandmothers. One quirky fact: crocodile dung was once used in medicinal pastes. Supposedly had magical properties. You gag just thinking about it. Thankfully, no one here's trying that. At least, not anymore. After cleaning up, you wander down to the edge of the village where the potters work. Their kilns blaze hot, even in the fading light. They make the jars for burial offerings, the bowls for mixing paint, the little statues placed to do chores in the afterlife. You watch one potter shape a figure of a servant. She smooths its face gently, muttering, "May you carry water for your master." That's the deal. Build a miniature worker, and they'll carry your burdens beyond death. You're tempted to make one for yourself. Maybe 2. Give them tiny chisels and paintbrushes. Let them handle the messes next time. You spend the evening patching your tunic, sitting by lamplight, sewing uneven stitches. Your hands ache from years of gripping tools, but the rhythm calms you. Someone starts playing a flute nearby. The notes are soft, fluttering like moths in the warm air. A neighbor comes by with a few dry dates and a question. Do you think they really walk in the field of reeds? You nod, then shrug. I hope so. The field of reeds, an eternal paradise where the dead live in peace, tending their crops under golden skies. Some say the tomb builders are promised a spot there too, if their work is worthy. You hope that's true. Otherwise, you've spent years carving your way into someone else's eternity, while your own remains uncertain. You lie on your mat, staring up at the ceiling beams. Flakes of dust catch the lamplight, dancing like sparks. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughs in her sleep. You think about all the tombs you've helped build, sealed spaces, secret chambers, treasures meant for gods and pharaohs. And here you are, living in a mud brick room with a cracked bowl and one good blanket. But somehow it feels enough. Just as you're about to close your eyes, you hear footsteps. A messenger from the foreman arrives. New orders. There's another tomb assignment coming up. This one, a double burial. Husband and wife. It'll be tricky. You sigh. No rest for the builder of eternity. The next morning, you're back at it. The sun barely peeks over the hills, but you're already loading baskets with chisels, cords, and new copper blades. Tools that, once again, will help carve someone else's name into immortality. This time, the tomb isn't just for one person. It's for a couple. A high-ranking official and his wife. Double tombs are rare, which means one thing. Twice the arguments about layout. You arrive at the new site. It's not far from the main necropolis, but the terrain is less forgiving. Harder limestone, steeper inclines. A few men are already sweating buckets, trying to hoist scaffolding into place. The foreman is barking orders. The apprentice is fumbling with measurements. And you? You're trying to figure out how they expect a full burial chamber and 2 sarcophagi in this cramped hillside. As you mark outlines on the wall, your hand brushes a curious pattern in the rock, a set of strange carvings, much older than your current project. They're not part of the tomb plan. In fact, they're not on any plan. You call over senior scribe. He squints, rubs his beard, and mutters something about proto-script and pre-dynastic symbols. Historians still argue whether these early carvings were religious or just graffiti. Either way, you're told to ignore them. Time is money, and the dead don't care for detours. You set to work with your team, chiseling deeper, the sound echoing inside the tomb like a heartbeat. The air is dry and powdery. Every breath tastes like crushed stone. You make a mental note to bring more water tomorrow, or at least bribe someone to carry it for you. As the days pass, you get to know more about the couple you're entombing. You read the inscriptions the scribe drafts for the walls. Poems about eternal love, prayers for shared rebirth, odes to their children. It's oddly touching. You've seen plenty of tombs stuffed with ego, gold, and look how powerful I was energy. But this one feels like a story. You carve the image of the couple side by side, holding hands, facing east, the direction of rebirth. You can't help but wonder what your own afterlife scene would look like. Probably just you, passed down a pile of rocks, holding a lunch basket. At lunch break, you huddle in the shade with your crew. Someone passes around roasted chickpeas and a story about a worker who fell asleep in a tomb and swore he heard the dead whispering. You all laugh, but then grow quiet. The silence inside a tomb can do that. Make you feel like someone's always listening. One afternoon, an accident slows progress. A large slab cracks unexpectedly, pinning one of your fellow workers. He survives, but just barely. His leg shattered. The healers rush in with splints and prayers, but he won't be carving again. They say he might become a guardian instead, working at the tomb's entrance when it's done. Injuries are common. So are shortcuts. The copper tools dull fast, and some teams cheat by using stone blades. Easier to replace, but more dangerous. You refuse. You like your fingers too much. A quirky but useful trick you've picked up over the years. Listening to the rock. Tap it just right, and it sings. Too soft. You'll waste hours. Too hard. It'll fracture. The stone talks. You just have to listen. By now, the tomb is taking shape. Corridors stretch deeper, the antechamber is carved, and the couple's names are inscribed in cartouches. Oval rings that say, "Hey, we're important." You trace them slowly, almost reverently. There's something satisfying about it, like adding the final flourish to a painting. But there's a hiccup. The offering room is too small. The priests are complaining. Again, you have to expand it. But doing so risks breaking into the bedrock above. You argue with the architect. He argues back. You both get nowhere. Finally, you suggest something no one wants to hear. Remove a decorative niche. It works. Barely. You lose some art, but save the space. A small sacrifice, you think. The dead won't mind. As you carve the last figures, servants, bakers, musicians, you pause on one detail. A woman holding a flower to her nose. Simple, serene. You wonder if it's the wife. You imagine her, in life, picking flowers in a courtyard, pausing to smell a bloom before handing it to her husband. It's moments like these that make the back pain worth it. You wake with a sore back and a stinging reminder of yesterday's work in your arms, but there's no time to dwell on pain. Today is a major shift. The couple's tomb is almost finished, and now comes the phase no one talks about over dinner. Security. Tomb robbery isn't just a distant worry. It's a reality. Everyone knows someone who's taken a little something from a burial site. Even in the workers' village, rumors swirl about secret caches and hidden passages. You'd think sealing a tomb in solid rock would be enough. But no. Thieves are as creative as the artisans who build these sacred vaults. This means one thing. Decoy chambers. You head into the tomb's corridor, where your team is creating a false passage, a narrow hallway that leads nowhere. It looks real enough, until a thief gets far enough to realize they've been duped. You can't help but smirk. It's a strange kind of war. You versus the future criminals of Thebes. A key task today is camouflaging the entrance. Once the burial is complete, this doorway will be sealed and hidden under rubble. Not just any rubble. Carefully placed debris that looks totally natural. It's like sweeping dirt under a cosmic rug. The overseer arrives to inspect your progress. He's unusually quiet today, holding a wax tablet and chewing on a fig leaf. There's a new method, he says, almost whispering. An invisible locking groove that could be wedged from the inside. You raise an eyebrow. Invisible. Sounds like trouble waiting to happen. But you admit, it's clever. As the work continues, the sun hangs heavy above, baking the walls until they shimmer. You take breaks in brief shade, wiping sweat with a cloth that hasn't been dry since breakfast. A scribe nearby is practicing curse inscriptions. You glance over and catch phrases like, "He who disturbs shall have no tongue, and his heart will be devoured by flame." You nod approvingly. A little theatrical, sure, but it sends a clear message. Mainstream Egyptologists agree that tomb curses were less about real magic and more about PR, psychological warfare for would-be robbers. But historians still argue whether some of these curses had roots in deeper spiritual belief or even ancient legal traditions. By now, the double sarcophagus chamber is complete. You and your crew guide in the first of the massive stone lids, carefully maneuvering with ropes, levers, and a lot of yelling. Someone nearly loses a sandal in the process. You chalk it up as a win. At least it wasn't a toe. You watch the sarcophagi being lowered into place. Even empty, they look imposing, like they're daring the world to forget what's inside. The wife's tomb is slightly smaller, her decorations more delicate. Flowers, dancers, even a pet cat drawn in exquisite detail. The husband's side is more austere. Scrolls, priests, an image of him shaking hands with Osiris, which always feels a bit optimistic. You think, if he knew the kind of shortcuts we took on his ceiling tiles, he might want a word. Still, the artistry is impressive. Gold leaf lines the inscriptions, and polished obsidian eyes gleam from carved statues. You help place the final canopic jars into their niches, each holding the sacred organs of the deceased, sealed in clay and reverence. A strange smell lingers today. Not the usual sweat and limestone, but something sharp and sweet. You follow it to the embalmer's tent nearby. Inside, a bald man in linen robes stirs a thick liquid over a low flame. "Cedar oil," he mutters. "Makes the body smell less dead." You thank him for the clarification. You spot something odd. A bowl of crocodile dung sitting on the embalmer's shelf. Not for mummification, he says, but as a skin salve. Ancient sunscreen. You gag a little, then try to act cool. He offers you a smear. You decline. Politely. Night falls, and the desert cools. You and your team sit near the entrance of the nearly finished tomb, eating lentils and barley bread under a sky dusted with stars. A flute plays softly in the distance. For a moment, you feel proud. Tired, yes. Aching in places you forgot existed. But proud. The tomb will be sealed in 2 days. You think about the couple entombed forever, their images painted in a stone, their love story locked in silence. You wonder how long it will last. A decade? A century? Thousands of years. You hope, at least, they don't get robbed before next summer. The final morning is still and unnervingly quiet. Even the donkeys seem subdued. You wake up earlier than usual, dressing in your cleanest tunic. Well, the one with the fewest holes, and make your way to the tomb site. Today, the burial takes place. You arrive to find a procession forming. Priests in white linen, relatives of the deceased in finely pleated garments, mourners already wailing like it's a competitive sport. Incense smoke drifts like ghosts through the air. You suppress a cough. There's something surreal about watching this much ceremony for a man who once yelled at you for misaligning a falcon stencil. You and a few trusted workers help carry the burial items into the tomb chamber. Everything the dead couple might need in the afterlife. Beds, stools, a few chests of fine linen, and food offerings carefully wrapped in reed baskets. There's even a painted board game, Senate, and a tiny boat model, because apparently, eternity includes travel plans. As you arrange the items, you overhear a priest chanting the opening of the mouth ritual. This spell is ancient, older than your grandfather's grandfather, and believed to give the dead their senses back. So, yes, the statue can eat the bread and hear the prayers. It's symbolic, or not. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians saw these rituals as literal magic or deeply layered metaphors. The actual mummies arrive next. They're stunning, in a slightly terrifying way. The linen wrappings are pristine, the amulets glint like stars, and gold masks shimmer under torchlight. You help lower them into their final resting places. It's not glamorous, maneuvering dead nobles into stone coffins, but you feel strangely honored, like you're part of a sacred play, with backstage access. Now comes the sealing. You and your crew lift the heavy stone lids back into place, sealing the sarcophagi shut with thick mortar and a whispered prayer. A few guys mutter about the smell, resin and myrrh, and something far less poetic, but you wave it off. At this point, you've built up a tolerance to almost anything. The door to the tomb itself is next. You pack the corridor with rubble. No, not just toss it in. It's layered, hidden, engineered chaos. One of your buddies laughs. Tomb raiders won't know what hit them. You laugh too? Mostly hide the fact that you know someone, maybe someone in this very crew, might try to rob this tomb one day. The final seal is made with plaster and marked with the Royal Necropolis stamp. That's it. It's done. The tomb is officially a no-entry zone. Unless you're very dead or very determined. You step back. The sun is beginning to fall behind the cliffs, casting the whole desert in soft gold. There's no ceremony for you or your fellow builders. No thanks, no songs. Just the knowledge that you've added one more sealed chamber to the mountain's belly. You gather with the others by the village's edge. Bread is passed around. Someone pulls out a jug of beer, thick and warm and a little sour. Perfect. There are stories tonight. One old man talks about a tomb he built where they accidentally sealed a cat inside. Still haunts me, he says, grinning. Or maybe I just hate cats. You feel a strange sense of emptiness now. Not sadness. More like something has ended, and you're not sure what replaces it. It's like finishing a book with no sequel. Later that night, you walk back to your own small home. Your tools are stacked in the corner, still dusty. You wonder if you'll be called again soon, for another tomb, another noble, maybe even a royal project. Or maybe you'll go weeks without work. Life in the workers' village is unpredictable like that. As you lie down to sleep, your body humming with aches, you think back on the last few months. The laughter, the curses, the arguments over color schemes, the time you dropped a paintbrush into a jar of wine and pretended it was intentional. It's all part of the invisible story behind these mighty tombs. The pharaohs get remembered. The gods get worshipped. But it's you, the builder, the dreamer, the one with sand in your teeth, who made it all real. That night, you dream of sandstone corridors. The next morning, things shift. The tomb is complete, and while your body knows it deserves rest, your hands twitch without the usual rhythm of chisels and paintbrushes. You loiter in the village with the others. People sharpen tools, oil sandals, prepare huts for the next project. The afterglow of a completed tomb lasts just about as long as the scent of the incense burned for it. Sweet, but fading fast. You've now returned to a slower rhythm. Without tomb deadlines to rush toward, there's suddenly time to notice things again. Like how the sun rises just behind that one crooked palm tree, or how your neighbor's goats have learned to open baskets when he's not looking. You're still paid for a few more days, a bonus for finishing ahead of schedule and not dropping a sarcophagus lid again. There's talk of another commission down the valley. Smaller tomb, less gold, more clay bricks. You sigh, but work is work, and you got mouths to feed. The gods don't take excuses, or unpaid offerings. Someone mentions a scroll that arrived at the scribe's hut, a record of your tomb, your wall paintings, even your name etched beside the false door relief. You play it cool, but inside, something stirs. Immortality isn't just for kings, after all. Sometimes, it's in a signature scratch behind a mural or a misaligned lotus petal that no one will ever notice but you. Back in your hut, your kids ask about the tomb. You tell them what you can. How deep it went, how cold it fell to the bottom, how the gold gleamed in torchlight. You skip the part about dropping that amulet into a jar of plaster. Some stories are better left unrecorded. You carve a little toy sarcophagus out of leftover limestone. Your youngest wraps her clay doll in linen scraps and insists she's building her own tomb. You can't help but smile. Legacy doesn't always need cartouches. Later that evening, you walk the edge of the village, feet trailing in soft dust, moon rising like a pale lantern overhead. In the distance, the tomb's entrance is now completely hidden, sealed by time and rubble. But you know exactly where it is. You could find it blindfolded. You pick up a palm frond and draw a quick sketch in the sand. A doorway, a sun disk, a little boat. It won't last the night, of course. The wind will take it, or a stray goat will stomp it to nothing. But you draw it anyway. Because in a world of gods and kings and deathless stone, a builder's touch is still the first magic. The kind that shapes eternity, one brick at a time. And now, as the night settles deep around you, you can let go of the echoes of chisels, the soft brush of linen, the chant of ancient spells drifting through desert winds. Your journey is complete. The tomb is sealed. The builder's hands are at rest. Breathe in slowly, letting the weight of the day fall away. The stars above the Theban cliffs blink gently, like old friends standing watch. You've done well. Brick by brick, moment by moment, sweat into memory. Your work now folded into time like a papyrus scroll. Let the quiet hum of the night carry you. Imagine the warm stone beneath your fingers, the rhythmic sound of mallet on copper, the scent of fresh-cut reeds. Feel how far you've walked, how deep you've gone. Not just into the tomb, but into the lives of those who built legacies meant to last forever. There are no more orders shouted, no dust to sweep, no paints to mix. Just peace and stillness, and a slow desert breeze through an open doorway. So rest now. The job is done, and your story is safe, tucked behind painted walls and beneath layers of time. Tomorrow can wait. For now, just sleep.